Remember when someone thought this was John Marston? Or how about when someone thought GTA 5 centered around a protagonist who was also a cop? Actually, yeah, that second one does sound familiar. The leaks and build-up to what is perhaps the most hyped game ever got me in a mood to look backwards. I thought it would be fun to revisit a few leaks from some of the biggest titles over the last 10 years or so. Stay tuned to figure out which ones were right on point and which ones were complete nonsense. I would say there's a spoiler warning in effect, but it's really more of a reverse spoiler at this point. At any rate, click away if you see a game come up you don't want to hear about. You've been warned. Oh boy. First up is 2022's Elden Ring. This is a game that was rumored to have roughly 20 bosses in it. I'm no expert on From Software games by any means, so let me do a quick check. Yeah, that count's coming up a little short. Perhaps the leaker was only counting main boss fights that progress the story, in which case I'll cut them some slack. Speaking of main bosses, beating one of them was rumored to give the player the ability to glide around and high jump. High jumps are in the game, but they require the player to be on horseback. And speaking of horses, it was rumored players could only ride their mount in the hub world, not the game at large. The reality is the main hub area of the Round Table Hold is one of the relatively few areas where horses can't be ridden. Different types of mounts were also rumored to be coming, including bears and tigers. The rumors weren't all nonsense, of course. The jump mechanic was leaked before the game's release, which is apparently a big deal for this developer, despite being a standard feature in many games. The leaked image of the game's map also holds up well compared to the real map. Staying in 2022, here's a look back at leaks from Horizon Forbidden West, or Horizon Singularity as it was reportedly called ahead of its release. The game's opening was to feature Aloy, Varl, and a group of Nora searching for Hephaestus. In case you need a refresher, and I know I did, Hephaestus is the AI that oversees building robot dinosaurs in the Horizon universe. They were trying to find Hephaestus so they could use it to create machines to combat something known as the derangement. The plot after that was rumored to center on Aloy being captured by a group called the Ashua, escaping, and ultimately rallying primitive tribes to fight against the Ashua. The Ashua were reported to have technology well beyond anything seen on the newly reconstructed Earth of the Horizon series. They were also led by an AI power called the Silver One. The Ashua were said to be repairing a Horus for the Silver One to occupy as its throne. This one definitely shares similarities with the finished product, even if it came out about 3 years before the game was released. The game opens with Aloy and Varl searching for a backup copy of an AI meant to restore the Earth. But it's Gaia they're searching for, not Hephaestus. They're trying to fix something called the Blight, which is this red plant that's killing everything on Earth, not the derangement. They do eventually find a copy of Gaia and attempt to capture Hephaestus, but that's about 2/3 of the way through the game, if not later. The Ashua described in the leak sound something like the group known as Far Zenith in the Horizon universe. And Forbidden West does involve rallying Earth's primitive tribes to fight against Far Zenith, but that's the game's final act, not the majority of the story. And instead of being led by an AI, Far Zenith is running from one. It's this revelation that one can reasonably expect to set up the next game in the series. Players who moved on to Horizon Forbidden West DLC even got to see the rumored working Horus machine come to fruition, as that machine was featured in the DLC's final boss fight. With Horizon 3 yet to be announced, we can only sit back and watch to see what leaks come out surrounding that title. Any video talking about leaks would feel incomplete without going back to 2020's Last of Us Part 2. Unlike other leaks on this list, I remember when this one came out. Online reactions were very strong at the time. I remember there being a prevailing sense of, whoa. These leaks feel accurate because they came with what appeared to be legit screenshots and videos to back them up. AI image creation wasn't what it is today, so there wasn't really a reason for people to think that the images were fake at the time. There was also empathy expressed on behalf of the creative team at Naughty Dog because they had their work spoiled before they could release it to the public in the way they intended. As for the leaks themselves, they gave away major plot points that potentially turned some people away from buying the game entirely, such as Joel's death and being forced to play as his murderer, Abby. The fact that these were indeed major story beats in the game only led to its divisive nature with players. I would say I hope the next installment has a much cleaner launch, but series creator Neil Druckmann has left that in question with recent comments suggesting the series might be over with Part 2. We'll have to wait and see. 2018's Red Dead Redemption 2 saw its fair share of leaks ranging from way off base to spot on. At one point, it was speculated the game would center on Jack Marston as a main character, with flashbacks to the Vanderlyn gang's younger days being playable as Jack tries to learn more about his father's past. A game centering on Jack would be one direction Rockstar could go if they did RDR 3, but they didn't do that for RDR 2. The same leak claimed players in the game's online mode would be able to put Gatling guns in the back of wagons and get unique mounts like zebras and buffaloes. This one was obviously nonsense in hindsight, as Red Dead Online failed to live up to any level of expectation that was set for it. A lot of the other leaks I found did come closer to the real game, however. Key story beats like constantly moving your camp around, one of your fellow outlaws being a Pinkerton spy, and controlling John Marston while building the ranch from RDR 1 were leaked prior to release. Other aspects of this leak weren't quite right, such as claiming Arthur was the gang's leader, and that players would get to choose which gang members they took on missions. This leak, combined with the game's second trailer in 2017, spawned speculation that this was John Marston and this was Abigail Roberts. Yeah, not quite. At one point, some gameplay footage must have leaked, but part or all of it was taken down. I managed to find this leak where basically everything that was brought up came true. Some of these really hit close to home, like being flung from your horse if you hit something. I'm sure we can all relate. Some of these details are way too specific to be anything but legit in hindsight. Examples would be calling out the names of the 9 challenges found in the game, and the shape and names of the gauges included as part of the UI, health, stamina, and Deadeye specifically. Whoever got their hands on this information had a reliable source to say the least. And finally, there's the GTA 5 leaks. Of course I had to dust these off, considering the current state of GTA 6 clickbait and leaks is what inspired this video. Starting with the obviously incorrect, one leak from 2011 claimed the game would essentially be a cop simulator. The protagonist would start off as a rookie cop whose partner had a background in the criminal underworld. Gameplay would have featured exciting elements such as cruising around the city looking for people running red lights, drunk drivers, and people whose taillights aren't working. Oh boy. After stopping NPCs, you would supposedly have had the ability to ask them to step out of the car or request their ID, typical cop stuff. You could call for backup if these stops escalated into a shootout or a car chase, but if you called for backup prematurely, you'd get laughed at and lose credibility. The main story was to center around the protagonist either remaining a clean cop who does things by the book, or following his corrupt partner into a life of crime. Corrupt cops would have been able to do things like plant evidence, steal from the police evidence locker, and engage in police brutality. Responses to this leak were all over the board, with some players liking the ideas, and others saying they didn't want to be a cop in a GTA game. The player base sure could have fooled me on that one, given the apparent interest in cop-related content in GTA Online. This Reddit thread from around the same time made some claims that could not have been more wrong in hindsight. Not only did they talk about stuff that didn't make it into the final game, they explicitly stated things would not be in the final game, even though they did wind up in the final game. Among them, that the map would be landlocked, that it would be impossible to fly over mountains, that ammunition gun stores would be in the game but not accessible, and my personal favorite, that Mount Chiliad would not be returning. My word. What would all the lore YouTubers have talked about for the last 12 years if that was the case? For all this leak got wrong, it was very right when it came to 2 bold claims. Ready for this? Weapon and car customization would be in the game. Ooh, that's really going out on a limb for a series like this. Going on now to leaks that turned out to be more credible, we have this entry from VG247. This one identified the main character as an African American in his early 30s, called out the existence of a massive underground sewer network that was featured in one mission involving a jet ski chase, and gave a reasonable explanation of how skill progression worked. Of course, not everything in this leak was accurate though. If it was, Players would have had access to flamethrowers, a barricading system to be used when hiding from cops, and earthquakes would have been integrated into the game's weather system. What are your thoughts on video game leaks? Do you soak up every detail, avoid them at all costs, or are you somewhere in between? What information has been leaked about upcoming games that's made you excited? I look forward to hearing all about it in the comments section.